Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the U Sports community.
A community striving to enhance youth sports.
I'm Taylor Medic.
I'm Sean Donnan.
And I'm Matt Maw.
Thank you for joining us today. The U Sports community is proudly presented by Nuance Hockey and Maw Golf.
Nuance Hockey provides detail-driven on- and off-ice development in the Edmonton area. For more information, please visit our website at nuance.hockey and follow us on social media.
Maw Golf provides elite coaching for golfers of all skill levels at the Millwoods Golf Club in Edmonton. Our apparel is provided by Bird and Barley, prairie-inspired, golf-focused. To receive a 15% discount on your next order, please visit birdandbarley.com and use our promo code YSC15.
This episode is produced by Nick Hussey of Hussey Multimedia, and hydration is provided by Earthwater. We are very excited to have Dustin Kohn joining the community for today's podcast episode. Dustin is a former professional hockey player who was drafted by the New York Islanders in the second round of the 2005 NHL entry draft.
During his career, Dustin played several seasons with the Islanders organization and also competed internationally in Sweden, the Czech Republic, and England. Dustin remains actively involved in the hockey community through coaching and consulting and currently serves as the player development coach for the Saskatoon Blades of the WHL.
Dustin has also been coaching at the minor hockey level in the JPHL and also works as a player development coach and mental skills coach with players in the WHL, AHL, and NHL. This spring, Dustin will complete his second master's degree from the University of Alberta, specializing in psychosocial dimensions of athlete development and performance. Above all, Dustin is a proud husband and father to his beautiful daughter.
I had the privilege of attending Dustin's first NHL game, and him and I were partners in a power skating and hockey skills business for 5 years. Dustin, we really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and welcome to the U Sports community. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's fun to see everything set up in here and going.
Nice. Thanks for coming.
Well, a lot to talk about today. You got quite the journey, and as a professional now post-hockey, you got a lot going on, but let's go back to the early days, and what are some of your first memories of participating in youth sports?
It's funny that that's the first question, because I've been thinking about that quite a bit recently with my daughter getting into skating and starting to be curious about hockey and what it was like for me growing up. But in terms of like organized sports, I'd say if I had to pinpoint like one memory, it would be like Tom Thumb hockey, where they had like the wooden dividers down the middle of the ice. and I think it was at Grand Trunk Arena, maybe the first year that I played, where we were there like every Sunday or something. So in terms of like organized youth sports, I'd say that would be my first kind of real memory that comes to mind. But just in general, like as being a kid, I think a lot about being at the outdoor rink, and being on the outdoor ice. That's something that really sticks out for me too.
In school, do you remember any sports kind of standing out, like, gym class or any sports that you were doing within the school structure?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think a little bit about like my early years. I don't have a great memory for trying to remember like volume of memories. Yeah. Me and my brother always kind of laugh about how he can remember things, a lot of things from our childhood that I don't. I don't know if it's from all the concussions that I had playing hockey, but certain things stick out to me. Like I went to La Pearl for elementary in the West End there, and I seem to remember like just really liking gym class in general. Yeah. And again, like when it was wintertime, we'd get to go on the outdoor rink a little bit. So that stands out for sure. I think playing floor hockey, playing ball hockey, like I definitely loved hockey as a kid. Yeah. So those would be the kind of main things that I do still remember.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for hockey specifically, you're obviously noting a passion of that starting early in your life. Was it more than just participating, or was it, following the Oilers, watching it on TV? Obviously, I know you well, and I know you are very into the gear, especially as a kid you were, and you and I both were. You have some memories about those type of things too?
Yeah, I remember being a huge Oilers fan, and even before that, I think it was my cousin who kind of like introduced me to the NHL. I couldn't have been older than like 7 or 8, I think, when I got my first set of hockey equipment from my cousin and from their family. And then I think around that time I was playing like NHL 94.
Right, yeah.
Like I think that was the big one. And I remember like I didn't really like video games as a kid outside of like NHL and Tiger Woods later on. But that sticks out to me for sure as like an entry point to the NHL was NHL 94. And then like I remember as a kid being like obsessed with all the different jerseys.
Oh yeah.
And I had like probably like 10 different teams jerseys by the time I was like 10.
Were you more interested in the expansion teams or the old school? Both?
I loved the expansion teams.
Yeah.
Like I remember having a San Jose jersey at some point. I remember having an Ottawa jersey at some point. Yeah, I don't know. It must have been just new and cool.
Totally.
I don't recall exactly
Were the
why,
Oilers
but
still like your main team though, like you would watch though?
oh yeah, as a kid, yeah.
Like who's your favorite guy growing? Like were you always a defenseman growing up?
No, I played forward as well, and kind of a little bit of both till I was like, well, actually, my first year in the Western League, I still played a little bit of forward, but I wasn't really a forward at that point. But yeah, as a kid, I definitely played forward and D like off and on in minor hockey, primarily D, but a little bit of forward. But my favorite player was Doug Waite, which you guys probably know. Yeah, my favorite player was Waite for sure. And then like once I kind of got into the Oilers, I remember like anytime I'd have a chance to go to a game, I'd be like there early to watch warm up and like look at all the gear that the guys had. And I definitely remember like loving the Oilers once I kind of got immersed in the NHL as a fan.
It's interesting because the video games actually I don't think has come up yet in any of our discussions, but that's obviously like a big way to kind of engage in the game. I'm thinking back to those years. It probably wasn't multiplayer yet. Like you probably weren't able to play against people in the neighborhood, which actually maybe was even better. Like did you have games where people actually came over physically and played with you, like you and your brother?
Yeah. Well, I remember with my cousin. That was the first kind of memory of it. And then my brother, I don't remember if he really loved playing NHL or not. The people who stand out to me as being the guys that loved playing NHL was like Scott and Steve Gabriel.
Yeah.
And then they had a younger brother, Oliver. All three of those guys we grew up with in our neighborhood. And they played various levels of hockey and throughout their lives. But I remember playing video games with those guys. Those are the guys that stick out. And those guys' names have come up a lot recently, actually, because I coach with Matt Knoll, who you know, Sean.
Yep.
And he actually grew up in the house next to those guys,
right,
to the Gabriels. So, definitely remember playing like with those guys, but it wasn't like something where you're playing over the internet like now.
Yeah, it's
like,
only 4 controllers, right? You plug in and maybe get into some fights.
Yeah, I think there was. I think there was just 2.
Yeah, wired.
I tend to remember there being 2, and like
we're dating ourselves.
Yeah. But how great is that though? You actually have to take turns, like you said, have some patience, wait your turn, but then you also need to physically at least be in the same room to play, instead of just being all alone all the time playing against people over the internet, right? So And was Matt Knoll too young? Like, did you know him growing up?
Yeah, I knew him growing up. He's born in 90. I think the same as Kev. Kev's 90, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely knew him because he was next door neighbors with the Gabriels, but he was like really good friends with Oliver.
Right.
I can't remember what year Oliver was born. Probably around 90 as well. And so yes, like saw Matt all the time and his brother and his sister, but we weren't really that close of friends just because at the time, like, you know, we're 3 years apart. And then we didn't go to the same junior high or high school. So yeah, no, but like saw him quite a bit, and then obviously got to kind of reconnect with him later in life. We've actually coached together now the last 3 years. And then obviously with us, with CK, he worked with us and coached with us. So lots of connections from the La Pearl neighborhood.
Yeah, totally.
You mentioned being attracted to the gear. That's what led me to become a goalie. Was there any interest in getting between the pipes with how nice the gear is and how awesome it is?
No, I don't ever remember I remember being a goalie for one game.
And that was it.
Yeah. Maddie was a goalie too. I remember Maddie had the Cujo pads. Yeah. I remember like liking the goalies for sure and like thinking that their gear was cool. but I'd never wanted to be a goalie. I remember I tried it once, and it was at Enoch Arena. And
Old Enoch.
I think I was in novice when everybody has to like rotate.
Yeah. Try once.
Yeah. It wasn't when I was playing like novice 1. I think it was like my first year. I think it was maybe my first year novice. I played like novice 5 or something. And I remember one game being the goalie and just getting like scored on a ton. and I didn't have any interest in being the goalie anyways. So I was like, okay, that's not happening again. So no, I don't ever remember thinking like much about the goalie gear, to be honest. But I can totally see how, if you're interested in that, you would love it, because I've heard that from lots of kids too recently.
Yeah, it was always the gear.
Stands out a little bit.
Well, it's the one position where you can customize like everything.
Pretty much everything, yeah.
Otherwise,
you knew everyone's mask.
It's true.
You knew the pad combo.
Totally.
Or as a player, everything's fairly standard, but just little things you can do to stand out.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
The goalie's an open,
Yeah, that's a good point for sure.
open thing.
So for the outdoor rink, did you go there predominantly with a lot of the same guys that you were playing NHL 94 with, or was it a little bit of a different crew out there?
It was mainly my brother and then the Gabriels.
Yeah.
For like the first handful of years that I can remember. And like we'd see Matt Knoll there and like his dad. So people in the community in La Pearl where we grew up. And then as I got older and started playing like, you know, more organized hockey, then I started going to like outdoor rink with different friends that I was playing organized hockey with. So like I'd go to like one guy I remember going to his kind of community rink a lot was Jesse Martin.
Yeah.
We'd go to his outdoor rink in Millwoods, and that was lots of fun. Different guys around here, like I remember going to like, I think it's Westridge or Wolf Willow with you back in the day.
Yeah.
But I think, for those first handful of years, and even like just primarily, it was we had a really good rink at La Pearl. We had a great rink guy who he'd keep it open even if it was like minus 25.
Yeah.
And it's different now where
Totally.
it's tough to even get
and stuff, but it's nice you had a guy that like he was all for the community in a certain way. Like, there's no other reason to keep it open than for the kids to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, and even having good ice, right? Like that's one of the beautiful things about the outdoor rink is there's adversity there, but at the same time, like if the ice is really bad, hasn't been flooded in a week, like there's a point where you just can't do anything on it.
Dangerous.
Yeah. So having a guy who cares and he's making the ice well, like that's gonna keep people coming out too.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that outdoor ice the other day. We went to the Oval, me and Nella, and it was like the best ice I've ever seen there in my life. It's
sweet,
so clean.
Yeah.
Nobody was on it for whatever reason that day. And it's nice when you're on there outdoor ice and it's good ice. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think at the Oval they actually have a Zamboni in the shed.
Oh yeah.
So I think that probably helps.
Yeah.
And then they even do like speed skating training and races. So like obviously, I mean, can only imagine speed skating and you go through a crack or something, like they've got to have that ice in good shape or it's going to be dangerous. Right. So yeah, that's awesome. And then you said at school, which is pretty cool because, you know, you see that a little bit. We obviously did that one session where we went to Linwood and helped them during school hours. Yeah. But it doesn't seem to be happening as much where, you know, kids will actually go to an ODR as part of a gym class, session as part of their school curriculum. So obviously that was probably a little bit of a different environment. You're out there with, you know, all your classmates. Some of them aren't as skilled as you and whatnot. But, you know, what are some of the things that you kind of remember from the ODR in terms of like, obviously we talked about your core group, but, you know, playing against, you know, older players that might be there, younger players, like, did you find that to be beneficial, having that diversity out there?
Yeah, I don't really remember that as much from like school. Like we did get to go the odd time like as a class, but that was more like the teachers would kind of like organize and supervise, and like you'd had to use like a tennis ball, you couldn't use a puck or something. But I remember for sure like in the evenings and on the weekends being at the outdoor rink and exactly like you said, like kind of playing against a bunch of older guys, even adults and younger kids. And I think that that's really good for thinking about it from like a skill development perspective. I think it's really good for kids to be at the outdoor rink and playing against different players and different levels. And kind of like, you know, when I was a kid, it was like if you were one of the, I guess, let's say good players or better players, you kind of got to like stay in the game and stay longer. And I think that can be a good thing, like a healthy kind of competitiveness, to to really grow your love for the game if it is something that you love doing.
Totally.
Do you remember anyone in particular that you may have gone up against? Maybe not by name, but there's this one guy who's a couple years older, could never, he always beat me wide or other way around. Anything stick out to you in terms of that?
Not really. Like, I kind of remember like just some of the, I guess, adults and older people that I didn't know them personally, but I just kind of remember like me and Scott and Steve and my brother playing with those guys, and I think that was always like probably good. Like because we did play a lot and we loved it, and we were getting pretty good. I think we kind of got to play with like a lot of the older guys, and that's kind of what I remember. Not really anybody specific, but I do remember like Steve was like really tall, like he is like 6'7". But even back then when we were like 11, 12, 13, like he was tall, and so like sometimes he'd get into a little altercation or something with the guy who was like 8 years older than him, just because he's so big, and because we were also pretty good players for our age. But yeah, I don't really remember like specifics of that too well.
I guess, how'd you get started in hockey? Like, was your dad a hockey guy growing up?
Not really. He played hockey probably till like bantam when he was a kid. But he wasn't like a very, like, I'd say like big hockey fan. Didn't really follow the NHL like outside of like casually, because growing up in Edmonton, the Oilers were winning when he was growing up, and so he followed it casually, but he wasn't like I wouldn't say he was like a very like informed like hockey kind of like coach or parent or anything like that. But I got involved because I mentioned my cousin earlier. He had a set of gear, and he kind of tried hockey a couple times and didn't really like it. And then so they didn't really like playing it. He was a huge fan, and he liked playing the video games and stuff, but didn't really like playing it. So I kind of got that gear from him, and then like I just remember like really loving it and enjoying it when I started playing. And then conversations that I've had with my parents about it, like obviously since then, was that I did just love playing. So got into it and just never really looked back, just kind of was obsessed with it, I think, the first handful of years that I played. And my parents did everything to let me play and play as much as I wanted.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned your first year novice, you're kind of just building some momentum. You're playing a lower tier. Let's talk a little bit about your structured hockey and kind of how that progressed.
Yeah. I think my first year I played like novice 5 or something.
Yeah. I
don't really remember too many people that I played with from that team or even who coached it. I just know that it was like kind of, I had that Tom Thumb year the first year, but then my first year novice, I played for KC, kind of just like got put on a team, and I don't really remember too much about it, to be honest. And then I know the next year I played novice 1 and like was quite a bit better as a player, like even in just a year or two of playing, to the point where I was like kind of one of the better players on my novice 1 team. And then kind of after that, I think is when hockey started to get, like, for me, I guess into the competitive years, playing in Adam. Obviously played with you, Sean, growing up, and we played in Adam. John Levitt was our coach, then your dad, and then your dad in Pee Wee, and then just kind of went from there. Yeah,
and then obviously Donnan Hockey Academy. Being at Vimy now, obviously it's pretty cool to go full circle and be back there and to talk to people. And like we were saying before we started here today, Kale was back working for a bit, and you just went to the open house recently and saw your mural on the wall in the hallway there still. So let's maybe talk a little bit about how that experience was. Like, as you're saying, hockey's starting to continue to snowball. You're putting in the hours in the unstructured areas on the outdoor rink. You're rising up the ranks within the structured hockey. Now you're going to a hockey academy as well. How did you find that jump from normal school to a hockey academy?
Yeah, well, I loved it. And it's something, again, that my wife and I have been talking about a lot lately, because we're making a decision about school for our daughter who's in kindergarten in the fall.
Right.
And went to La Pearl for elementary. I did pretty well in school as well. And I actually, my first week of grade 7, went to Crestwood at the academic program.
Yes.
and I asked my mom about this the other day, and apparently came home and was like freaking out and all upset because all my friends and the guys I was playing hockey with were at Donnan and I was going to Crestwood and I didn't want to. And so my parents pretty much like made the decision to let me make the decision that I was going to switch and go to Donnan, which I think ended up being great for me because I loved hockey, and we had a group of kids there who really loved hockey and loved being together, and again, it was like a healthy kind of environment where we were all pushing each other to be our best. And then we had a super supportive group of teachers there too, who were very influential, I think, on our development in those key years, because they were not only like great people, but they had hockey backgrounds,
right.
And they were able to kind of steer us, and we were probably pretty willing to listen to their advice. And I think it was awesome. Like I loved being at Donnan. I don't think that I really ever had negative experiences or negative kind of times there. For me, it was like all really positive, like just getting to do what I wanted, which was play hockey and then hang out with a bunch of people who were like-minded, and being in an environment facilitated by teachers who kind of knew what they were doing, who were really ahead of their time. You think back to some of the people that we had there, and like the people that were involved in putting that program together at the time were way ahead of their time, in my opinion. In terms of like
what Peacock did was wild. Dan
Peacock, and obviously like Jeff Jones was big there in terms of being involved, and Serge, and it was really kind of a great setup. Like our group of kids and like our kind of age as the time that this was all coming to fruition, like essentially a hockey academy model. We were really lucky because it hadn't got to the point where it was like so commercialized like it is now with the academies. It was just like a bunch of really good players who wanted to be playing hockey together with a bunch of good coaches. So it was awesome.
Out of those guys that you mentioned, or was there someone else from a leadership standpoint in that setting that had the biggest impact on you?
Well, there was a lot of guys. I mean, like a lot of my closest friends to this day are from Donnan. Our friend group, and even guys that I don't see as much or talk with as much. Like I feel like we're still very close. Like an example would be like a guy like Chris Olsen. And I remember like Sean Bell, who's a couple years older than us. He's born 85. Like he was an older guy at Donnan then, like who we all kind of looked up to, and
you had to look up to him.
He was a monster in grade 9, and we were in grade 7, and he was like a full grown man. But I think it was just a good environment where like that kind of healthy competition existed, but also it was very supportive.
There's a big camaraderie from there still, because like I ran into Sean Bell like a couple months ago randomly. There's still like it's like you almost like you never missed a beat kind of
for sure
with everyone. It's always it's pretty special.
I ran into Corey Rutt at the open house too.
He was there.
He's thinking about putting his older daughter in kindergarten there as well.
Nice.
Because even with teachers, I see Rick Ramsey a little more now. And like that's really special too.
What's he up to?
He is, I can't remember exactly, but I think it's called Outreach.
Okay.
So they have, I believe it's like 4 or 5 like locations. It's basically for after grade 12, like if you have some issues or if you have like kind of problems with education, he kind of deals with that.
I see.
I think he's the principal for that.
He
was at Vimy even just a couple years ago.
Oh, okay.
From what I believe, he oversees like all of them.
Mr. Schmidt is still at Vimy.
Is he?
Yeah. He runs the outdoor pursuits program,
which
is super cool because it's like stuff that we used to do, like just a little bit. Like we'd go to the ravine all the time. Like that'll be the next question, but I'll get there. But he's running that program. He loves it. Like they do rock climbing, just all sorts of outdoor stuff. And he's like the head teacher of it. So he seems to,
it's nice for him that he stayed for that long and now he has his own
Yes, yeah,
program.
he
It's really
seems to
cool
love
to
it,
hear.
right?
His classroom is now the hockey room at Donnan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was just there, like I said, for that open house, and we popped our head in the hockey room, and I was like, oh, I'm trying to remember whose classroom it was, and it was Mr. Schmidt's like science classroom.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's in the room that we used to have lunch in and stuff?
That was at the end of the hall.
Yeah, it was at the end
right?
of the hall because we always had that.
I
room,
didn't go
Okay.
down there.
I think that's just a normal classroom
Okay.
now. Yeah. Things have shifted because, I mean, obviously when we were there, it was an elementary and junior high.
Yeah.
And then it's grown to the point where it's just elementary now.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the junior high component is now at Vimy with the high school, right?
So both wings are.
There's like a K to 3 on the one wing, and then it's like 4,
okay.
5, 6 on that back one.
Yeah. Yeah. So just on that point that we were talking about, like the different activities that we did, how did you enjoy? Like, obviously hockey was your passion.
Yeah.
But do you think it was also super healthy that we had so many other things integrated into that program that we were doing, and it wasn't just constant 7 days a week hockey?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I mean, I remember going to the U of A, doing different things at the Butterdome.
Remember the wrestling?
Yeah, the wrestling.
I remember DeLong, though, like, he tore me. I was like, I ain't wrestling anymore. I don't want to do
You wouldn't want to wrestle him now.
No.
Yeah,
That was a really good one, though.
He's another guy who's obviously a great friend of all of ours from Donnan. Yeah, I thought it was awesome, like going down to the U of A and being in the Butterdome, doing the track stuff there. Rock climbing was fun.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that skating machine we went on.
Yeah, the
too.
treadmill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good. It wasn't like so much that it was overbearing. I mean, I guess like maybe like just thinking about it, for some kids it could have been if they weren't there because they loved hockey, but I don't really think that was the group that we had back then. It was a very small, really small group of kids in Edmonton and area coming to Donnan for a hockey program.
Yeah.
There was
Honestly, we had max 20-ish.
yeah,
probably.
and there was one hockey program for all of Edmonton, and right now, like, think about how many there are.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was really good to expose kids to different things as well, and just in general, just get them moving and being active and outside and those types of things. I think are really good for kids.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing too that they were really aware of at that time was that we were in the hockey program, but we all had hockey team commitments after. And I think they did a good job of understanding, like, hey, we could do hockey every single day, but we know they've got hockey here 2 or 3 times a week. I think it was probably that we had. We need to mix in some other things because they've also got their team practices, their team games, and all that stuff after. So, like, to your point of them kind of being ahead of their time, I think they did a good job of balancing our schedules.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, again, like, a lot of those guys were informed with their programming,
right?
And it wasn't like, I don't think, just thrown together. It was very like thought out and probably researched, and obviously coming from the game, a lot of them had experience in the game as coaches and players and whatnot. But I think also the educational side of being in a school around teachers and the development, as it pertains to like just a child's development, I think being in the education environment has an influence on the hockey as well.
For sure.
So it's not just like an isolated hockey program that's trying to think about their programming. It's like a school hockey combo,
So it wasn't even just sports. Like, I remember, like, for accountability, like, I remember we had those cards we had to earn. You remember those, like, the little binder we had?
Yeah.
Like, if
Yeah.
you did something well, you'd get, like a card, or I remember even public speaking. I think Jesse Martin's dad that came in?
Yeah, because he worked for Dale Carnegie, I think, or something,
Yeah.
right? The Dale Carnegie.
Oh, that's right.
Foundation.
Wasn't that McCangus?
Or sorry,
Oh, yeah,
Mike
McCangus.
McCangus' dad.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we had like public speaking at like whatever middle school.
Yeah.
Like, things that like.
Yeah. And I even remember with Peacock, him bringing in Corey Cross to talk to us about mental skills.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, like, you think about like where like mental skills and sports psychology is at now, which it's still like in its infancy, especially in terms of being applied. Back then, for Peacock to be doing like mental skills with us in like 1997 or whatever,
So we're 20
somewhere
years.
in there.
2000 it was way ahead of his time.
Totally.
To the point where like it wasn't received well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just it might have been too early to a certain point, but looking back on it, I feel like I learned a ton. It just took like
Yeah.
longer than
Yeah.
maybe it should have
For
for
sure.
me anyways. But
Oh yeah, he was obviously bang on. It's just a matter of like society around us all not being ready for it, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Do you did you get any pushback, and maybe all three of you guys could answer this, from like your regular hockey team? Like, oh, why is this kid on, going to this program and he's on the ice all the time, and he comes to the rink tired? Not to say it was you guys, but
Yeah.
did you guys get any pushback for being in something new?
I think some kids did, but not us, because Sean's dad was our coach. So he knew what we were doing, and it was part of the plan. And like even the year before that, like John Levitt was our coach, and Andrew was
Those guys
Donnan.
knew, yeah.
So like those guys who coached us were also part of what I think drove behind the scenes us going to Donnan. And so yeah, they there was no issues there. I definitely think maybe some people again were like, oh, why are they on the ice so much, and then come into our. But again, like for kids who like loved playing, for us to be on the ice in the morning and then go play a game as like a 11-year-old, I think is fine.
Yeah.
take a
like,
nap on the way home. And
yeah, and like again, like if we were like if it was a kid who like didn't enjoy it, that'd be really difficult for that kid, But if it's a kid that loves it, then I don't think that's really an issue.
They had no issues, yeah.
if you're there for the right reason and you just that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's the ones that get forced into it where it could get really over,
And if
like quite a bit to deal with.
Yeah.
if you're older too, and if you're older, then it becomes like injury prevention too, right? If you're like skating so much, then there's those injury things to think about. But for us, when we were in junior high, I think it was like totally appropriate for us to be on the ice there, and like the amount of practices that we were having throughout the week, I don't think was a ton. Maybe a couple a week.
Yeah.
Like 2 practices a week plus the stuff we had at Donnan. So I think it was not too much at all.
Yeah, that integration on the other side, like Dustin was saying with my dad and Mr. Levitt, who's still on the board there, like they could then also provide some balance to the whole equation, because they knew how much we were skating, they knew our schedule. And, like Dustin was saying, like we still had team practices, but I definitely think they put some thought into saying, hey, like, we know the boys are skating, this is hypothetical, I can't remember the exact days, but they've got to skate at Donnan on a Tuesday. We're going to try to get ice on a Wednesday, but all those pieces being fit together is obviously where it becomes so valuable, right? Being able to mesh
That's a
all
unique
that together.
situation to a certain point too. Like you had coaches that, one that were like educated enough to know to like break it up, but also like they were so involved.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they had, those KC teams, we had, I don't know, 75, 80% of our team was going to Donnan. Not everybody, but like most of us were there. And then the other cool part is we ended up having a lot of success as a team. And I think a part of that was because of the cohesion that we had with having so much time together, so many years together. We're classmates, we're friends, and, we know each other like the back of our hand. And, we've also got a bit of a hand-picked team, which certainly helps as well. Like we had some of those things going, but we were a group of kids that were doing things like systematically well beyond our years. And I think you can't do that unless you spend a ton of time together. Like it's just not possible. So I don't know if you kind of would agree with that. Or
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think there's lots of things that go into that, like you mentioned from the hockey perspective, but even just knowing each other and
Totally.
being friends and having relationships that are outside of the rink because we're at school together and things like that, I think definitely play a part. Again, when you have a bunch of people who are like kind of wanting the same things, who are all wanting to play hockey and wanting to get better and push each other in a healthy way.
So we know obviously golf became a big interest of yours. Before we get out of the junior high years, do you remember what kind of got you going on golf? Because it probably happened right around that time, right?
Must have been right around there, and I'm sure it was because of you guys, yourself, Maddie, Mark, you definitely got me into golf, and I'm really thankful for that because I absolutely love golf. Like it's more enjoyable to me than hockey for sure, especially at this point in my life. But yeah, I think for sure, like having a group of other people there who kind of introduced me to the game is why I started golfing.
Yeah.
And I do remember, like, even before Donnan, like, kind of, again, hanging out with kids in my neighborhood, like the Gabriels, and we'd go to, like, the driving range. And so I knew I liked it, but I remember really kind of getting into, like, playing not competitively, but, like, on a course more, like, in junior high. And then, from there, it became something that I did every summer.
Yeah. Do you think that was kind of part of it too? Just the way, I mean, you obviously hear about a lot of hockey players that have golf as a sport that they like. Do you think, simply because one could be more winter focused and summer focused, it allowed you to keep them both moving forward?
Yeah, I think so. I think just with the nature of the seasons in Edmonton and like the weather and then the schedule of the like you said, respective seasons for sure. And then I don't know. It's interesting because it seems like a lot of hockey players do enjoy golfing, and it might just be a simple fact of, like, the seasons kind of lining up. But for me, golf was also never, like, competitive. It was always, like, relaxing. For the most part, like, I wasn't really ever golfing and putting a lot of pressure on myself. It was more just, like, really enjoyable because I loved doing it. Yeah. So it was something where I could just totally be just immersed in having fun in the moment, whereas which became, I think, valuable for me as I got older, and when hockey started to get more serious, and then it starts to become more of, like, a job and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did you have
with yourself, obviously, too, though? Because I remember when you started, or when we first started playing, like, at Mayfair a lot, like, I don't know, we must have been like a 10 handicap or so, and then at one point I know you were down to probably like around a 1 or a 0. So it took a lot of work, obviously, a lot of playing. Yeah,
well, like, and being able to go play at those types of courses, and like, I think it was your dad who sponsored me there originally.
The intermediate thing,
at the Mayfair, and, like, I loved it. Like, I like I said, I still love playing, and I was always competitive with wanting to get better, but I think there was not that, like, external, like, measurement coming for me. However, I did play in a competitive event for the first time when I was at Highlands as a member a few years ago, which was really fun.
The club championship?
Yeah, club championship. Nice. Yeah.
It's different, right?
Yeah, very different. Yeah, when you have to putt everything, and you gotta continuously make the 2-foot putts.
Yeah. The knee knockers.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Did you have the same affection for the golf gear as hockey gear? You mentioned when you were younger. Did the shirts and the gear stick out?
Oh yeah, I did for sure. Like, I loved. I didn't, like, you don't, at least for me, you don't get golf clubs as often as hockey equipment, right? Like, you're not, like, breaking.
You shouldn't.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, you're not breaking clubs. Some
How many
guys
iron sets have you bought?
Me?
Yeah, bought.
Not many.
I usually
get them from you. Yeah, I think most of them. Well, like, I remember my dad taking me to get a set of Titleist 981s.
Oh,
those were
nice.
That would have been like
Mark. You had those.
That's like junior high, maybe.
Yeah, Mark, you had those.
Yeah,
for sure.
And then I had those for a long time, long time, and then I don't remember what the next one. The next ones might have been ones I bought for myself, like when I was playing hockey.
You had P7 something. There's a Titleist combo set you had at one point.
Yeah, those ones came from you.
Yeah.
The 735 CMs.
Yeah.
Those were sick. The progressive set. Yeah. Those are good.
Those at the time, they look terrible now, but they did look so
those are unreal. Yeah. And then after that, actually, you know what? The
blades, I think, too.
The irons I have now were the ones I got after that. Were the ones I got from Dave. What's his name again?
Oh, Dave McComb, the tailor-made ones. Yeah.
And everybody who sees those are like, these are sick. They're like the
P750s.
The 750s.
Yeah. Those are one of the best models that they've ever come up with.
Those look unreal, which I think some guys on tour still use, right? But they don't make them anymore
because it's probably been way too long.
Yeah,
they can't deal with it anymore.
They're just too old.
Unless someone, I don't think anyone plays it anymore.
But I got those for like $400.
Yeah,
and at the time I think they were like like brand new.
Yeah,
they had like good shafts.
Got a good deal.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So going into high school then.
I guess Bantam drafts in grade 9, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about that first.
Leading you into, I guess.
So the end of grade 9. Yeah. So, let's talk about that Bantam draft.
Yeah. I don't really remember really remember specifics, but obviously I didn't get drafted. I remember like it was a big deal for some people, but it wasn't something that like my dad ever talked about.
Right.
I don't ever remember feeling like a lot of pressure to be drafted. However, I do remember like not getting drafted, and actually particularly like me and Kale kind of like talking about it and being like upset that we didn't get drafted. But I don't really, honestly, I don't really remember like a ton. Like my bantam year, I was pretty small. Like I was small. I don't think I played very confident because I think I was small. I was definitely small and hadn't had my growth spurt yet. And then also like, I think back then, nothing against the coaches that we had in bantam. Like they're really nice guys. I remember them. But I think that it was just more like the bigger, older players kind of got to play more that year.
Yeah.
So I didn't get drafted. Yeah. And then I ended up going to the Calgary Hitmen's camp and had a good camp and got listed out of camp. And I also grew that summer. So like, I think I might have been playing bantam at like 5'7", like as a defenseman.
Yeah.
And what I remember from my bantam year is that I didn't really have a huge impact on the game for whatever reason. Like I think I was like a good skater and I was skilled and I was a smart player, but I didn't really have an impact on the game. And I think it was partially because I was just small. And then, back then, like the draft was very different than it is now, where there was a huge premium placed on size, too much for sure. So yeah, didn't get drafted, went to Calgary, got listed there, and then went from like 5'7" to like 5'11", over the summer. And then my next year in U18, I think I had coaches who, I had Sandro Pisani as a coach and Jeff Giacobo, who are now, I would say, have been quite prominent coaches in the minor hockey kind of world over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Coaching primarily in St. Albert, but like those guys I think were able to recognize that I was like a good or smart or skilled player, and gave me a lot of opportunity. I think it definitely helped that I was 6 feet instead of 5'7",
right.
Yeah. But I played U18 my first year, like as a 15-year-old, and and I remember having like quite a bigger impact on the game.
Right. So that's grade 10.
Grade 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we missed our second year of bantam.
That was the year they changed
They
everything.
changed it.
Yeah.
So I played like we all did. We played like first year bantam as 87 birth years, first year bantam, and then we played like first year midget.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really like line up to think about like me being a really good player at U18 as a 15-year-old, but like not a good player as a 14-year-old in bantam. But I think it had a lot to do with my size.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, it just shows you how quickly things can change too, though, right?
Yeah.
Like
for sure.
Well, and even for you to especially when that age change happened, and now there's 3 age groups all competing for those AAA spots.
Yeah.
Like even to make that team.
Yeah.
Is a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
In grade 10.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it had a lot to do with those coaches, like seeing some potential in me.
Yeah.
Yeah. What sort of things, other than just maybe putting you in certain game situations that you got from them, that maybe increased the confidence or to yourself, I can do this. I can make an impact.
Well, there's a guy named Eric Morissette, who's another smart hockey coach who was involved at Donnan when we were at junior high. And he came to me and he said, after my bantam year, he came to me and he said, I think that you have a chance to be like a really good hockey player. And I think that you could make U18 next year. And I think you should be working out every day in the gym in the summertime. And so that year before my U18 year in the summer, I went and worked out with a group. I think Kale was in that group, Alex McGarrah, a handful of guys, kind of a group that Eric put together. We worked out at St. Edmunds, which I think has a hockey program still.
I think that's where the Furillos are.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Umberto's there. So yeah, we went and we worked out at St. Edmunds like after school every day in the summertime. So I guess once school was over, we were just going, regularly, like not after school during the day. But that was definitely a big thing for me too. And I remember Eric saying to me, like, I think that you could make U18 next year if if you're stronger. And yeah, so that definitely helped. And I know that he was a guy who was, friends with Sandro Pisani, because Eric was training Fernando at the time, who was playing. I don't think Fernando was in the NHL yet. He was maybe in the minors. So there was a relationship there. So I'm sure Eric had a lot to do as well with me playing at U18 and making it and being someone that those other guys liked.
What about your on-ice skill development? Like, you were at FX by grade. You went to FX for
grade 10.
Was there someone there that helped you, or was it just something that you just developed over time, like just with general practice? And
yeah, you know what? FX, I don't really remember like the actual on-ice program that well, other than that we had like a kind of a good group of kids that were having fun. And I remember playing like the 3-on-3 tournaments at the end of the year every year, but I don't really remember FX that well, honestly. Like I was in Calgary for high school for grade 11 and 12 when I was playing with the Hitmen, and for whatever reason I don't have a great memory of like being at FX in the hockey program. Even at school, like I have like spotted memories, but not great memories for whatever reason. And when I say not great, I mean like not that they weren't positive. They were very positive. I just don't remember in detail. Yeah, not really well.
Well, making the jump to the Western League, I guess, after that first year at midget, or U18 now as they call it, just I guess making that transition and jumping up into another, quite the year after year, bantam, midget AAA, then major junior, making that step into the WHL. What was that like? It was kind of unexpected, I think. Like I was planning on playing for St. Albert in the AJHL for the Saints. I kind of had a little bit of an agreement or whatever that I was going to play there. And then I went to Calgary's camp and, had a good camp. And I just remember kind of like having a meeting with Kelly Kissio, who was the GM, and him saying like, yeah, like, we want to offer you this, and and then kind of me and my dad having to go out out of the meeting room, and then like go for lunch and talk about it and think about it, and kind of thought about it for like another day or two. And then I remember just kind of thinking like I wanted to play at the highest level as I could at that time. And like the guys that we had in Calgary, like Kelly Kissio, I remember my dad my dad wasn't a huge hockey guy, but I remember him thinking like, Kelly Kissio played 1,000 games in the NHL. He seems like a very professional and kind of like smart guy, which I think that he has proven to be, not just when I was there, but in his career. And my dad liked the idea that it was not very far away in Calgary, 3 hours away. So we kind of like made the decision like, that I was going to stay. And once they, at the time, once they pretty much said like, we're going to guarantee you, like, you're not going to get cut. You're not going home. You have your university kind of schooling agreement. Yep. I remember my parents being pretty happy about that, thinking like, okay, well, at the very least, he's going to get a free university education out of this, because we like in my house, we didn't really ever talk about me even making the Hitmen, like maybe a little bit, but like not really, like it wasn't like it was a goal I was thinking about a ton, other than maybe it was a possibility. So yeah, it kind of like it was a little bit out of nowhere, I think, for me and for my parents, and turned out to be really good. And I got really lucky to get into a spot where, again, like an organization that liked me, and the coaches saw something in me. And my first year as a 16-year-old, like a lot of 16-year-olds, you don't really have a huge role. Nowadays it's a bit different, I would say. You might see a little bit more where like a 16-year-old comes in and has like a meaningful, impactful role in the league, because I think guys are more skilled nowadays, and then also the league's not quite as physical, and there also might not be quite as much of a kind of hierarchy where like if a 16-year-old comes in now and he's like one of your best players, like he's gonna play. You're playing,
Whereas back in the day, it was still a bit more old school in terms of like, you know, when you come in at 16, you're kind of, you need to like be like exceptional to be playing a lot at 16, which
you got to earn your playing time.
You got to
pay your dues.
Yeah, pay your dues, and then you know, like when I was 17, I got to play a ton. So I think that was pretty common back then, where you come in at 16, you don't really play a ton, and then at 17, if you've worked hard and had a good attitude and kind of done what they've asked to improve, then you get to play a lot more at 17.
Mm-hmm. And how much were you aware of the WHL scholarship program too, going maybe before, like you said, well, I don't know if I'm going to make the Hitmen or not. Were you aware of their scholarship program?
Yeah, I knew that it was something that was an option. But again, I wasn't really thinking about it because I didn't really think I was going to make the team. Mm-hmm. Or you know I was going to make the team. Like nowadays, what happens quite a bit is after the Western League draft, like teams will sign their first, second, third, even like fourth rounders, like right after the draft, like the next day. Yeah. And that might even be something that's required of the player agreeing to be drafted there. You know, that happens very often now, where players will say, well, you know, I'm only coming if I'm going to sign like the day after the draft or week after the draft. Whereas back then it wasn't quite as much like that. And I obviously wasn't drafted. So even if I, you know, was, even if I was like a first or second or third rounder back then, I don't think it was quite as much of like an automatic signing as it is now. But I wasn't really thinking about it that way. I was just thinking like, okay, we'll see if I can even have a chance to make the team, you know?
Right. Like, was you not getting drafted ever like a chip on your shoulder, like kind of like motivation, or was it just like a whole surprise, like that it came that quick?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, I bet you my dad would have a better feel for that question than I do right now. I don't think it was like a huge chip on my shoulder. At the same time, like I do remember thinking I was better than a lot of players that got drafted. And I think that it probably was motivating, just like thinking about it. I probably did feel that way for sure at times, but I don't think that my parents really ever placed a ton of you know, weight on the opinions of like other people in terms of like hockey, and it just wasn't something that was talked about that much in our house. Like we didn't, you know, my parents never talked about other players, or never talked about you know, comparing myself to, you know, other players, or even like Alberta Cup and that stuff. It was always just like another thing to kind of do. It wasn't really talked about. So I think that inherently I was good at just kind of playing because I loved playing, rather than like because of what the
noise outside
stuff was. But then I definitely started to feel that stuff when I got to the junior level, for sure.
Did you find that having less pressure at home was like, because you mentioned golf being an escape, and like a lot of people need that. They need that place that they can go to where they're not feeling the pressures of their job or hockey or climbing the ladder, whatever it is. Looking back on it, do you find that was really kind of healthy for you to be able to go home and it wasn't, you know, just more hockey?
Yeah, for sure. I think that it just allowed me to, again, like not necessarily conscious of these things. I don't think my parents were like thinking about these things. I think it was more just their kind of nature. Yeah. In terms of the way that they did things, but it absolutely was good for me to just be playing because I loved playing, and not because of, you know, making the next level or like whatever the achievement or kind of accomplishment could have been. At the same time, like I do think that there were certain things that, like, had my parents have been more informed about hockey, they probably could have given me some help and advice in different areas at different times. But overall, I think it was a really, really positive thing, and I'm very grateful that that's how they were, because it allowed me to just play and develop the skills and develop the love for the game, without really having to think about the external expectations or, you know.
For sure. Yeah. And then, so you make the team in Calgary. Now you're billeting for the first time. Obviously, that's a big step for a lot of young players. You know,
and you're how old at this time?
16,
17,
moving away from home.
The Jeep.
I remember the Jeep. And so, like, I mean, obviously you're not too far, like your dad said. It was nice. It's Calgary. They can still come and visit you. You maybe have a day off. You can jet home. But, walk us through, were you overwhelmed? Was it exciting? Maybe a little bit of both. How was that?
Yeah. I think I was really fortunate to just be taken care of so well by the billets that I had. There's still people I see every year to this day, and there are people that had a really meaningful kind of hand in like my development. So, some guys don't get as lucky with their billets. I think for the most part, everybody who billets is doing it for the right reasons. They have great intentions. But in terms of the support that a billet's able to offer, it might not be that unlike parenting, where there's a certain set of tools that the billets have based on their upbringing and whatever their careers and their life has been. And so my billets were, very, very smart and very, helpful. And they had 3 daughters who were at varying stages of university, school and hockey careers. And they were able to really just be an awesome support for me and really like gave me like anything that I needed to just be able to be a good hockey player, be a good student, be very supportive of the relationship with my parents and that dynamic. And, they spoke often, my billets and my parents. And, my billets were just awesome. And I was so fortunate to have all the billets that I ended up having in my career were all, I was really lucky with the billets that I had because they
had a really good one in Bridgeport, right?
The family in Bridgeport, they were awesome too. And we can talk about them more after probably, but sure. Super lucky.
And were you in a high school in Calgary, or was it correspondence? I know there's a little bit of both out there for players these days.
We were in a high school. It was a little bit of a unique setup though, because it was called St. Anne's, and it was like an inner city high school. And I think it was, I'm sure it was a school where people who had maybe dropped out of high school or not finished high school would go back to complete high school.
Okay.
So that I think gave the Hitmen at the time the flexibility to kind of have the players in and out for classes. We had to miss classes sometimes if we're on the road, things like that. I don't really remember like teachers. I remember like the guys I went to school with there that were on my team, but I don't think we really ever felt like we were part of the school. So that might've been maybe part of the downside, but it just allowed for a lot of flexibility. It was almost like we were doing school kind of like by correspondence, but we were like at the school doing it, So like for me and the other 16-year-old who we made the team together, his name was Riley Merkley. Like we both did well in school, so it was kind of like the two of us like just doing our classes together. And so it was nice to have a guy who was like another person who cared about school, who did well in school. That definitely helped. And then the next year, like in terms of like the billeting, and I had a player who ended up living beside me who became, one of my best friends. And so that was another really fortunate part of my billeting setup and the school setup, was that I kind of had that like group of 2 or 3 really, really close friends that lived close to me, who we also like did all of our school together.
So like, what was your motivation to like keep going with school with, being away from home? You have no parents, no one really to, stay on top of you. It's kind of all on your own, obviously.
I think I liked school. I enjoyed school. Like in elementary school, I always did well, always enjoyed school. Junior high, same thing. And then I think like, honestly, probably junior high at Donnan, being in an environment where we all pushed ourselves to do really well in school probably helped me a lot in high school and develop those habits. And then in high school, like I didn't do quite as well. I mean, cause I was like a 90s student, I'd say, for most of my life. And then in high school, I definitely had some classes like that were a little bit lower than that. And I remember thinking like, oh, like I still need to do good in school, but I want to play in the NHL, so I don't need to do as good in school, which, was obviously flawed way of thinking. But as a 16 or 17-year-old, I think that definitely played a part in me not caring about, having 90s anymore.
Right.
But I think in general, I just still enjoyed school. Like the subjects that I was interested in, I like did really well in.
Yeah.
And then some of the subjects that I wasn't interested in at all, I still managed to like get through fine. But definitely, I think those habits from elementary and junior high of like, you know, wanting to do well and knowing what I had to do well helped. I don't, like, honestly, my parents never really were involved in me, you know, doing homework or doing extra stuff with regard to school in elementary or junior high either. I remember them always saying like, have you done your homework, or are you doing well in school? And I'd say, yep. And they'd be like, well, we'll see you when we get a report card.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's nice they put a lot of accountability on you in a certain way, like an independence too.
Yeah.
Early.
It was definitely a lot of independence, and like, you know, like growing up in the house that me and my brother grew up in, we did have a lot of like, we were kind of like, you know, lots of support in certain ways, but then also like on our own in other ways.
Right.
So, like my mom very, very much like jokes nowadays about how, again, because we were just talking about this with Nella going to school and stuff, like how she jokes around about like, I don't know like what it was, but you know, and you just really liked working hard in school, and I was always surprised when teachers said you had straight A's. So I wasn't quite as like, I don't know, not that I wasn't well behaved at home, but
Right.
I was very well behaved at school.
Yeah.
Tried.
I think it's almost because they didn't really need to do much.
Yeah.
Or not like they didn't do much, but they were able to let you just figure it out on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
they actually probably wouldn't. Yeah, they wouldn't know, and then they find out, hey, he's doing well. Let's just
And then it just kind of kept going that way.
go.
Yeah. Well, you don't need to change anything if it's working.
Yeah.
Right? So that's good.
But also it speaks to like the values they must have put in you, like as a young child growing up, and just the environment you're always in, like good schools, good teachers,
For sure.
good coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We were lucky to have, again, like La Pearl was a really, really good school. And I can remember teachers from elementary who took a definitely an extra interest in like in me as a student. And that for sure probably had a role too in it.
Well, it's an interesting theme that's kind of come up in some of our interviews already, is just those key people who are not only setting a good example by what they're doing, but they believe in you, right? And like you mentioned Eric Morissette and him being kind of a critical guy that came in at a point where you could have kind of gone the other direction, right? You could have been like, man, I didn't get drafted. I don't know. Maybe this isn't going to work out. You know, you had enough self-belief for sure, but that, you know, you have an influential guy like him that comes to you and says, hey, no, I think there's more here. Like it's just so interesting to hear how those people can move the needle in that way. And it's not just necessarily about them, you know, being a good teacher with the way they're teaching stuff. It's the belief that they can instill in a student or a player.
For sure. Yeah, I think for sure. I think that's a huge, you know, motivator, and it's a huge kind of piece to like someone's self-worth, is like feeling like they're able to do it, and then having some people whose opinion they value telling them that too.
Right.
And like outside of their parents, you know, I think it's obviously so important to have that from your parents, but then to get that from some other people too, I think that can be really influential. There was a conversation I remember having with a prof at the U of A maybe like 2 years ago, and it was like kind of a conversation where there was like maybe some negative stuff being talked about in terms of just the way that like minor hockey and athlete development has kind of got to in certain spots in Canada right now. And she just reminded me of this research that like all it takes is like one really influential person to like make meaningful change in someone's life. So yeah, I always thought that was an interesting thing to think about, and that's probably exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, 100%. Just kind of back to your entering the WHL and signing with the team and where it is now. So just correct me if I'm wrong. I back in that day, I remember it being like you typically would sign, if you played a year, you would get a year of education. And now you're talking about players that are saying, you know, before the draft and arranging different deals and packages. Are some players even getting like a guaranteed 4 years even before they play a game? Is it opened up in that way?
So it was what you said back in the day, where it was like a year a year of every year that you played, but I think you could get a year on signing. So you might get like 2 years when you sign.
So that's what you would add?
I think so, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And then nowadays it would be like 3 years on signing. But there are stipulations on that, and I don't know the exact rules because I'm, not a manager and don't know all the guidelines and rules. But I'm pretty sure that if you're signing after you're drafted as a 15-year-old, it's like 3 years on signing. Wow. So you do get quite a bit up front. Yeah. And then that changes as players get older, in terms of what teams are allowed to give. But I think that now with the ever kind of changing landscape of like NCAA and Junior A and Western League, I think that there's some flexibility in terms of like what they do with school deals.
Right. Yeah, I was just had that noted too. That's obviously a pretty hot topic these days with the NCAA and what they're going to be approving this summer. I just hypothetically putting myself in the shoes of a WHL general manager, you wouldn't want to be guaranteeing a kid 3 years of education if they're going to play 1 year and go to the NCAA. So there's probably some things that need to change there. Bigger picture though, what do you kind of predict is going to happen with the NCAA allowing major junior players?
Yeah, I don't know what to say in terms of like how to predict what's going to happen in the future, but I think that it's good that players have more choice now, where they can kind of make the decision to play Junior A and then play in the Western League and then go to college. I kind of like it where it just gives them more choice, and then I think it's going to force programs to do a really good job with their programs. Obviously in the Western League there's still the draft, so your rights are held by whichever team drafts you, so you don't necessarily get to choose where you go in that regard. But I like the idea that you can go from the AJHL to the Western League to, the NCAA. The thing that's interesting to me and all that too is like that the CIS leagues don't get as much recognition as they should in terms of a development option for players. Like I don't know why the NHL views the NCAA as a better place for a 20-year-old player who's graduating from the Western League to go play now compared to like the U of A, which is a great program.
Yeah.
I think it's changing just a bit. Yeah. Like Noah Philp with the Oilers, he was a U of A guy. You're seeing more guys, but to your point, I think before, it was a bit of a faux pas that you don't take guys.
As well.
Yeah, there's probably some things that I'm not aware. I'm sure there's things I'm not aware of, but it seems to me like, the CIS option is still a really good option too. And, I don't know. I'm not really too sure exactly what to think of it, other than like I think that the best players are going to kind of keep moving up leagues as they can.
Could be age as well, because by the time you're done CIS, you might be 24, 25. And it seems like a lot of times now, like they want to figure out what this prospect's going to do when he's, by the time he's 19, 20, they kind of want to have a pretty good idea and have him in their system pretty early, it seems like.
Yeah, they're going to have to figure out how to manage. Like the NHL is going to have to figure out how to manage guys' signing rights depending on whether they're staying in major junior or leaving, because it's a 2-year window if you're drafted out of the CHL to sign, and it's a 4-year window if you're drafted and going to college, if you're drafted from tier 2. Yeah. So in terms of the guys that are like hypothetically playing in the Western League and then drafted from there to the NHL and then want to go to college, I don't know how that's something's gonna have to change in terms of the signing window.
Yeah. Do you think the WHL gets a little younger overall?
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, because they could lose, hypothetically, some 19-year-olds who are really strong players. Yeah, the 20-year-olds, hypothetically, like they could lose some older players, whether they're 19 or 20, if they're ready to go play the NCAA, or if they view that as a good step to go to before whatever the next step is, then they might need to think about getting younger, with whether that's more 16-year-olds or even allowing 15-year-olds to play.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm very curious to see how it's going to kind of unfold the next handful of years.
How it shakes out. Yeah. Well, and then Junior A too, right? Because you did have a few guys that stuck to Junior A because they wanted to keep the NCAA option open.
Yeah.
What happens with the Junior A leagues too? That's going to be interesting to see as well.
Yeah, 100%. Just it seems like there's a lot of options right now. There's a lot of options, which I guess is a good thing for the players, but at the same time, like I know a lot of these junior A teams, especially, like they're not making money.
Right.
So I don't know if they all survive long term.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it just naturally is getting more competitive, and that's going to happen, right? So
yeah.
I mean, do you think that whether it's minor hockey or even the junior leagues now, do you think there's a point where, like, I totally agree, like having options is healthy, and that's the free market, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way a lot of things work. But do you think there's a point where, we get too far where there's just too many options for kids?
I think so.
Yeah,
for sure. I don't know how you figure out what the right answer is, but I don't like it at the minor level so much, where there's like so much choice. Like, again, I think like Hockey Alberta, Hockey Edmonton kind of lost a bunch of players to the private leagues because parents wanted to have more choice, and they wanted to have more, I think, say.
Yeah.
And they wanted to maybe play for a coach that they knew or felt comfortable with. But then at the same time, like, just kind of allowing players or giving the options for players to be here one year, then a different place the next year, and never have to go to tryouts. And, you don't have to listen to your coach because you can just choose a new one next year. Like, I don't think that's good.
Yeah.
So it's definitely got to be a balance, like you said.
Yeah, if every 6-year-old is a free agent, it's probably gone a little too far.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like, it's probably pretty helpful for you guys to grow up with the same team for like quite a few years.
Yeah. Well, I think for us, we just, again, there's some luck involved. We had a great group of guys. We all went to Donnan, but we had great coaches within the system, and we had a lot of cohesion. We didn't really need to go and feel like we needed to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. And you see this with soccer.
For a lot of people, they don't have that.
You see this with soccer a lot. Like, the teams, they just come up. Like, obviously you lose people here and there for they don't want to play anymore, whatever. But it seems like when teams can grow up together, like, the development is it's much better. Well, when you know your teammates, like, especially because you guys were skating with them at Donnan too, like, where everyone's, like, you're always on the same page.
Totally. Well, I mean, even the pro teams talk about that at the start of each year, and those are guys that have been doing it forever. Like, if you have a brand new roster every year, it takes some time to get on the same page.
Yeah.
Imagine how difficult that is for an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I think in theory, if you can have like great coaching and great messaging around a group of kids for a long time, that's awesome. And then
like a singular voice, I think.
And then and then supplement it maybe with some other kind of voices that share the same values but maybe have different perspectives, or they're brought in to do something that's slightly different. I think there's a ton of value there compared to like switching coaches every year. I mean, I guess it just depends what are the reasons that you're switching coaches every year.
Yeah. So there are rumor going around that the traditional minor hockey is potentially looking at opening the borders. That rumor has been flying around for a long time. I'm kind of hearing it coming up a little bit more recently. Again, I have no idea if it's going to happen next year or not. What do you think about that? Like, if that does happen, I mean, like you said, they're obviously trying to compete with the private leagues. They're trying to give people more say and more choice. Any kind of predictions on what would happen if traditional minor hockey decided to do that?
I think they're going to open borders next year in some capacity, as a guess, and I've heard the same rumors that you've heard, but I think that they have to, because I think they have to give families and athletes some choice. Again, like, I think it's a very personal family decision if you want to like send your kid to go live in another city and live with a billet when he's 12 or 13 or 14 or 15. So again, just kind of thinking out loud, I think it makes sense to open up borders at the older ages and not really at the younger ages, because I think kids should be like in their homes with their families. But I think that opening up the borders at, let's say, like U18, U17, even like U15. U15 is probably too young, but U18, U17, I think makes a ton of sense. And then, again, like same thing, like we talked about at the higher levels, like let the program speak for itself. In my opinion, like it's not so much about whether a player is playing in an academy or minor hockey or a JPHL. It's about who's coaching the program. who's around the program, what are the values and the habits that you're trying to instill in the kids, who are the supplemental voices that they're bringing in as, let's say, skills instructors or mental skills instructors. Are those people informed with what they're doing? Do they have experience?
Yeah.
I think you could have a great program in any of those leagues, or you could have a poor program in any of those leagues.
Yeah.
So I don't mind the idea of opening the borders, and I think they will at the higher age groups in Hockey Alberta to give people some choice as to where they want to try to play.
Yeah.
In terms of choice, like, I don't know if you've looked into this much with your studies now, but like Minnesota, North Dakota, like it's all a lot of like the high schools. I guess, how do you think, like, obviously there you're kind of stuck, but they seem to have very successful, I don't know if they are successful, but they seem successful. I guess, do you have any thoughts about those sort of programs?
What do you mean high school?
So like Shattuck. And
Shattuck.
Or
just
more of the academies?
Yeah.
Or
Shattuck.
private?
Even just like the regular, like the Minnesota high school championships.
Yeah.
Right.
How it's like massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't honestly, I don't know a ton about the US models. I don't know a ton about like high school hockey, for example, or even the US kind of junior leagues. I don't know a ton about. So I can't really say.
Okay, no, it just seems different because there it seems like you legit, where you go to schools is where you're.
Yeah.
But then also that leads to parents moving and stuff
Yeah.
too, so it does kind of have the same sort of.
Yeah, or at the very least you're having to commute more, right? So even like for the older years, like if they open the borders up and they say, I don't know if they're going to open it up provincially or even within the city. So if it was provincially, like you said, having a 12-year-old from here going to a Calgary team, moving away from home, that's probably too much, right? But if it's someone who lives in, the CAC jurisdiction who can now go play for KC instead. I mean, these kids are commuting so much typically anyways, because all the ice is rarely at one spot. I mean, KC would have a little more at their private facility.
Yeah.
But some of the downsides are going to be, you're going to have to commute maybe a little bit more. You're not going to be in your area quite as much. But unless you're a novice team that always gets to go at Collingwood because you live by Collingwood, like you're having to commute anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing that I see happening from this is because, like you said, it's going to be more competitive. And to be competitive typically requires more money. Now, whether that is, a terrible thing or not, in all likelihood, the cost of traditional minor hockey is going to go up because, like you said, KC versus CAC, they're going to be competing. That requires hiring better coaches. That requires possibly even being able to advertise, hey, we got better gear options. We're going to have better hours of ice, which costs more. And then there's going to be marketing dollars that are needed too. So, I mean, that's the only tricky part because I know, obviously, we've had these discussions a million times before. That's kind of the double-edged sword of this issue is like you want these kids to have the best possible opportunity to grow and develop. But if it comes with an increasing price tag, where's the line?
Well, we've already, I think, in Canada, priced out probably like by default the most talented players from even playing.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
We've already crossed the line.
Yeah. Like it's so expensive that most likely the best players are not playing. Just from like a statistical perspective, I think. Yeah. And so I think that should absolutely be one of the mandates of like Hockey Canada going forward is like, how do we lower the cost and make the game more accessible? And it's a really tricky problem to solve because it almost seems like the hockey landscape has become so commercialized and professionalized at the younger ages that it's like driven by similar principles that drive our society.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, one thing that I know you and me have talked about over the years, Sean, is like having coaches that are educated, that go to school, like a teacher would go to school, like post-secondary, which they do in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
And then that coach is probably able to do quite a bit more so that you don't need to have the supplemental coaches all coming in. That gets into kind of like the argument of like how much does a supplemental coach, like a skills coach or a power skating coach, do for the player anyways,
right.
But I think that there should be absolutely some time spent on thinking about how to make the game more accessible. Like one thing that I don't agree with in terms of the academies is like 5 practices a week.
Right.
So you're paying for ice and you're paying for instructors and everything 5 days a week. Like, why?
Yeah.
NHL teams don't practice 5 times a week.
Right.
Neither do Western League teams.
Yeah.
So is there some low-hanging fruit where you can cut some costs by thinking about how to inform a program for 15-year-olds or 18-year-olds by dropping to 3 or 5 practices a week? And that's mainly the academy model I'm talking about, because I know associations are not practicing 5 times a week, but that's one thing. And then the other thing that again we've talked about in the past is like making use of the daytime ice for the association teams, for the Hockey Alberta teams, right? Because ice in the evenings is just so expensive. How do you make use of the daytime ice without bringing teams into schools?
Yeah. Well, and I think that all ties back together with what Matt was saying on the high school side.
Yeah.
The only way you can really do that during the day is by having an integration with a school, which a lot, if not all, of the private programs have in order to make it work. But traditional minor hockey has still not been willing to do that. So, for example, we've got Vimy, and we're in the Maple Leafs jurisdiction. The Maple Leafs come and start playing out of Vimy. Now, how that gets integrated would obviously take a lot of time and conversations, because you've got coaches on the Maple Leaf side that want to keep coaching. You got coaches on the Vimy side that want to keep coaching. How are you going to bring those two entities together? South side, a lot of those South side kids go to the academy at Louis Saint Laurent. Like, there's already hubs where the integration could be easier. Yeah. And now you play for your high school. I think one of the things that's been sort of a big roadblock is they don't want to tell a kid that they have to go to school in a certain place just because they want to play hockey. It's not, like you said, it's not perfect. There will never be a perfect solution. Yeah. But, if you keep doing the same things, it's not going to change either, right? So that's kind of the challenge. But I mean, I really think that is the big piece that needs to happen, because again, the private side is doing that. Like, you have to have that integration with the school, and like you said, now you got cheaper ice, you can bring your costs down, and not only that, just your quality of life. Like, you have your evenings now to do some homework and still do another sport and spend some time with your friends, have dinner with your family, right? Like, there's tremendous value in that versus like having your whole day just completely action packed all the time. Yeah. So I mean, with your team, you guys are in the afternoons. Do you find, like, obviously you can't stop a kid from going and doing another session if they want to, but do you find overall it's nice for them to have that time in the evenings?
I think so. Yeah, I think that the team that we're coaching and the program that we're coaching with the Titans, I think that they have a pretty good balance. Like, they typically have Monday either off after their games on the weekends, or if they didn't play on the weekends, then Monday is always like a skills day, right? That I'll run as a skills day, and then going into weekends where they're playing, I think that not having practices in the evenings, I think that allows them to make sure that they're where they should be with school. Like you said, like having time to manage their school. Having time to have nothing to do is important, other than be with their family in the evenings. Yeah, for sure. I think that, there's tweaks that can be made to every program, but I think that the program that we have that we're running, I think we're really trying to think about those things. Yeah. And not think about like just winning games or just moving players on to the next level, but like their experience in the game too, right? Because that's gonna
developing like skills to even go to the next level is always like kind of should be the first thing. Like, let's just get everyone better first, then worry about especially at the younger ages, especially like for sure. Novice Adam, if you're cutting ice time already, it's like let's get everyone better first.
I'd make that argument even in the NHL. Like, the teams that win are able to play the most guys,
especially in the regular season, right? It's 82 games. You're getting banged up if you're you're able to play the most guys. You're able to have guys playing with confidence, and you have less of a spread from top to bottom in terms of like minutes, and less of a spread in terms of like guys that are happy and guys that are unhappy. Totally. And I think at the younger levels, like, it absolutely, and I mean, really, you can make the argument at every level other than the NHL is a developmental league. Yeah. Right.
And so I think the problem though is that a lot of people view them in isolation, like two separate processes. Like there's development and there's winning, and it really should be the same process. And like you're winning, your results are going to be, they're going to be what they're going to be as long as you're doing your process the right way, which is like developing the players.
Yeah. And sometimes that means sacrificing wins early in the season where you shorten the bench because you haven't built up the depth and the confidence of the team, and being patient, taking a step out, zooming out, and being like, hey, like, you know what, this might take half a season or more, but if we stick to the process, like, we can have even better success by the time the end of the year rolls around. And I just think that's easier said than done, right? Like, it's just so hard, especially, I mean, you know what that's like. If you come out of the gate and you're 0-10, like, I mean, it's tough to stick to the plan, right? And a lot of people can't do it.
Yeah, they're measuring their results off of traditional, metrics, wins and losses.
Well, minor hockey coaches, you don't get a 3-year contract at the AAA level. You get 1 year, and if you can buy, sell the program on, hey, development, which should breed wins down the road, but you start out 0-10, you might get canned. Even at the U18, U15 level.
Totally.
There's a lot of pressure to win at all levels. It's really, again, like, it kind of mirrors our society, right? Like instant gratification, like results driven, rather than like internal metrics.
So how do you alleviate that? Is a lot of it, because again, like, there's so many outside pressures that are just, it's fighting against you there. Is it really trying to proactively, before people even sign up, explain to them, hey, this is what you're walking into, so that there's less of a shock if you do start 0-5, and not everyone, people are still going to hit the panic button. It's going to happen, but it's easier to be like, hey, this, we talked about this might happen, and we're not going to all of a sudden change things up. Like, is that a big part of it, just kind of getting ahead of it?
I think so. I think communication, and then like you said, setting of expectations. From like a coaching perspective, I think like communicating with parents is important. I think, traditionally or historically, like, coaches would choose not to communicate with parents, and the argument is that the kids take the personal responsibility of communicating with the coaches, which there's an argument there for sure, and that's very, very valid. But I think that can also be done at the same time as a coach communicating with the parents. The reason why I think it's so important is because the parents are the filter of all the messages that the kids are getting, whether it's from their coach or from school, or if there's any type of dialogue and discussion between the kids and their parents, then the parents are having a massive effect on like the beliefs of that the kids are building. So I think that it's beneficial for the coach to communicate with the parents and just try to, in a sense, like, try to have them support the messaging that you're giving to the players, giving to the kids, which, again, like, people can decide themselves if they want to agree with you and support your message or not. But I think that would be a good starting point, is like that communication piece, and then setting the expectations, like you said. And I think one of the challenges with minor hockey is just kind of that parents are very passionate because they're all fans of the game. It's a really good thing because they care, but it can also be at times a limiting thing because they don't really understand, at times if they haven't played, if they haven't been there, if they haven't learned about it, it's tough to expect them to really know. So I think that's where the communication is so important.
Well, and then that's where your expectations need to be adjusted too. Like you just talked about, right? Like, you can't expect everyone to see it the same way that you're capable of seeing it.
For sure. 100%. Yeah. Everyone's kind of thinking about things through their lens based on whatever their experiences are.
Right.
So I think I think that's why it's important for that communication to be there. A conversation. Otherwise, how do you figure things out?
And then the next layer to that, I guess, would be like the selection process, right? Which obviously is, again, easier said than done. Sometimes you got to fill a team. You got to make some decisions that maybe aren't perfect. But I'm assuming then you carry that into the selection process and saying, hey, I've communicated, I've got ahead of it. There's X, Y, and Z. X family seems to be really bought in. Y as well. Z, well, they're just not quite grasping the culture that we want here.
Yeah.
I mean, no different than a business hiring employees.
It only
Trying to
takes
get people that are
It
the
takes
same
one
mind.
to poison the tree.
Right. So is that something that, again, you try to consider as you're going through building a roster?
Yeah, that's exactly what we tried to do with our team last year, and like Matt Knoll and myself coached the team last season that we didn't select, and then we had an opportunity to select a team for this season, and our results on the ice have been almost identical, but the off ice kind of I would say practice environment, buy-in, and like kind of willingness from players to really like embrace what we're talking about has been completely different.
Yeah.
And that was largely based on us trying to, recruit players and have players on the team that were like, again, like none of these kids are like bad kids or anything. They're young kids, but just aligned with what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And like, so if a parent or a player was coming to us and saying, our expectation is for you to develop our kid into a junior hockey player, it's like, okay, well, that's probably a red flag, because the goal should be to get better every day and just be a good teammate and have a good attitude,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And our team this year is very much like that, but just in general, I think, like you said, as a general like guideline, I think that's a huge part of like the evaluation process is like trying to get to know who the kids are and the families are.
Right.
Who are the parents who've raised this kid?
Yeah. Well, and then I guess the other piece I can think of to Taylor's point is once you get that season rolling, so you've tried to set a foundation to be as advantageous as you can to the direction that you want to go with. But then you need the people, above you in the organization or whatever to also be supporting you so that you can stick to the plan and not after starting 0-5 feel like you have to put everything in the blender, start shifting everybody. Like you got to have that buy-in from top to bottom or like Matt said, you got 1 point that just can break kind of everything down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously you must feel like you have that within that organization to be able to, stick to what you believe in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like within our group of coaches and the guy who runs our team, Garrett Meager, who's the manager for all the Titans teams, like there's definitely that buy-in and that conversation about that as being like a pivotal kind of piece to like what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's harder. It gets harder and harder as you get to the higher levels too.
Yeah.
In junior and at the pro level, like then coaches, I think, just feel like their job relies on winning and losing.
Yeah.
And so I think then at those levels, it's really important for the managers and the owners to have everybody on the same page about like what the culture is, what the beliefs of the organization are, what are we doing, how are we doing it. Everyone's working together so that there's not this like divide and feeling like, well, I need to get wins, otherwise my job's on the line.
Yeah. Well, that was awesome stuff to talk about. Maybe let's jump back into your, the progression of your journey. So NHL draft, what do you remember about that and where you were at with your career at that point?
Yeah. So my draft year was a lockout year. 2004-05, there was no NHL season.
Yeah.
So it was a lockout year. I was very fortunate to have a coach in Calgary running the Dean Evison, who really liked me, who played me a ton. So that again helped me like so much because I had a coach that believed in me, who also pushed me. He was really good at pushing guys in a way where you felt like he also cared about you. So I think that's a tough line to walk for a coach, where some guys will just let you play.
Yeah.
They won't push you.
Yeah.
Other guys will be hard on you and don't let you play. And he was really good at that. And so
it's kind of like parents, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. So he helped me a ton. I had a good year in Calgary, and then Yeah, I got drafted. That year there was no draft, or there was a draft. Sorry, there was a draft. It was held at a hotel in Ottawa, and I think like only the top like 15 or 20 guys went. Right. Like that was Crosby's year, obviously. So yeah, I didn't go. I think my agents kind of said like, yeah, if you're not going to be like a surefire like first round guy, you probably
don't show up.
Don't need to go because you and like they kind of told me like we think you might go in the second or third round. So that I didn't go. And yeah, I just remember like being at home, kind of like looking on the computer and seeing it pop up on the computer, and then that was pretty much it back then. Got a phone call from the GM, and then that was pretty much it.
Was it snow yet?
Millbury then, right?
I'm trying to. Okay, so it was Mike. It was Mike Milbury. It was Mike Milbury who drafted me, and then they fired him and hired Neil Smith, and then they fired him and hired Garth Snow.
Yeah,
like all within a year.
Yeah, a lot of turnover at that point, eh?
Yeah,
that's wild. And then so you get drafted. You still play in the Western League for what was it? One more year?
2 more years. So I was drafted after 17-year-old year, and then 18 and 19.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And you finish your WHL career in Brandon, playing for the Wheat Kings. Mm-hmm. Obviously another good staff from some of the stories I've heard, but maybe let you talk a little bit about that transition. And I mean, maybe first of all, I mean, there's a lot of young players who, again, like we talked about, if you're a free agent all the time, you don't understand some of the adversity that might come your way where, you're going to where you've been chosen to go and you just got to figure it out. And then B, overnight you could all of a sudden be traded or waived or whatever it is, and you're packing up and going to a new location. Like that's got to be challenging.
Yeah. So, when I was 18, I went to my first camp in Long Island, and had a really good camp and stuck around until like the start of the season, like early October. Didn't make the team, got sent home sent back to Calgary, the Hitmen. And I came back after a couple games. I missed the first few games of the year, and I remember like I played a ton as a 17-year-old in Calgary and had a really big role as a second-year guy. And then the following year, so Dean Evison then left, who went to the NHL. And then Dave Lowry was the new coach running our D. And I don't really remember exactly like the kind of like interactions between me and him, but he wasn't as big a fan as me as like Dean Evison was the year before, which happens in hockey. Like sometimes you have coaches that like you lots, and sometimes coach that likes other guys a lot. And so we kind of had a really stacked group of D in Calgary. Like Jeff Schultz was there, Brett Carson was there. A guy named Dylan Yo was there, who was a really good player. He never played NHL, but he had a really good pro career after. I was there. Carl Alsner was in his 17-year-old year that year. Alex Plant ended up being a first rounder for the Oilers. Like we had quite a few guys that they were trying to find minutes for. And so they traded me to Brandon. And at the time that I got traded, I was like definitely very disappointed and upset. And then I got to Brandon and had an awesome experience because I had great billets and I had a really good team and good coach Kelly McCrimmon and GM who obviously like believed in me a lot. And then I had a really strong 19-year-old year when I was 19. I was last cut from the World Junior team that year. We had a really, really good team, and I got to play in a completely different type of city than Calgary. Like Calgary was very fun because we got to watch all the NHL teams practice, and we got to play in the Saddle Dome and all that. But we kind of hung out in like groups of 3 or 4, because of where we lived, and it was a big city. Whereas in Brandon, like our team was very close, and you kind of hung out with everybody. And so that was a very, very, very cool experience, and very different. And like looking back on it, it was awesome for me. It was really good to go there.
That's awesome. And then so after that season in Brandon, 50 points, like you said, really good season. You're going back to camp with the Islanders, and how did that go?
Yeah, I think it went good. Like, I kind of remember them telling me, like, you're going to play in the American League.
Yeah.
Like, even before, like, even just kind of like after my 19-year-old season. So, going to American League as a 20-year-old, it was a big adjustment, like, hockey wise. Off the ice, like, they had us live with billets. So there was myself and one other guy who was, he was 21. He was a rookie that year. Andrew McDonald. The two of us both had to live with billets. They kind of told us, like, you guys are going to live with billets, which I remember when they told us that, we were both like not overly pleased because we were going to like live together and like have a house and stuff. And
how common is that in the American League?
it's not very common. It was actually Brian Trotier's idea because Brian Trottier lived with a billet his first couple of years. He played in the NHL in Long Island when he was like really young because he played quite young at like 18 or 19. So it was Trottier's idea. And the family that I lived with was just unbelievable. Like, they're like Lynn and Nancy, and then their kids. They have had a huge part in my life. Like, not just when I was living there, but like even to this day. Like, I talk to Lynn all the time. And I was supposed to live there for 1 year, but I ended up living there for 2 years. Got to live for free, which was nice. I think at first, like, they thought I wasn't making any money and thought I was just like a junior player or something. And
compared to him, you were making no money.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's a radiation oncologist at Yale, and he was just an unbelievable like influence on me as a person, and like hockey life, whatever. It's like one of those relationships that you just care so much about, and like I knew at the time how much I cared about that relationship, but like it's like even now, like I talk to him like monthly at the very least, you know. So awesome living there. And then like in terms of playing at that level, like it was an interesting league at that time. Like, it was very physical, like lots of really, really tough guys that fought a lot. Like, if you go look through some of those rosters when I was in Bridgeport, like you'll see names like Trevor Gillies, Jeremy Oblonsky, like
Mitch Fritz, I remember that
Mitch Fritz, like Joel Recklich, like guys that are like Mike Haley, guys that were like legitimately like NHL heavyweight tough guys. Yeah. And we'd have like 3 or 4 of them on the team. And it was just like unbelievable how tough those guys were. And the league was very different back then, when there was just like a lot of fighting. Yeah. It was very physical. And yeah, it was awesome, you know, living where I lived in Connecticut and being close to New York City and being able to experience living in the US and have a ton of really cool opportunities to have some life experiences were really cool.
I remember visiting you the one time. This would have been after your billeting years. You guys had the house like pretty much like right on the water. Like, it was just
right on the
beautiful.
Ocean in Milford. Yeah, there was like probably 4 or 5 of us living in there. That was that was cool. We all lived in Milford, Connecticut, and like the place was like right on the water.
I remember I drove in there. I think it was at night, and it wasn't until the morning when I actually could see where we were. I was like, wow, you guys got a pretty nice setup here
on the ocean.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Was Milford a smaller town, right?
Yeah, it wasn't very big.
So it's nice that everyone's kind of close.
Yeah, it's like right off the I-95, like 5 minutes off the highway to the ocean. It was very, very nice.
Was there anyone on those teams first couple of years that maybe took you under your wing or showed you how to be a pro? Because you mentioned kind of in awe a bit, first time living in a new country, all those things.
There was a couple guys like there. We had a captain there, a guy named Mark Watton, who was like in his like late 30s when I was there. He played a ton in the American League. He was an unbelievable captain, and anybody who I run into over the course of the last like 10, 15 years now, especially working more in the hockey world, like you run into guys, and anytime his name comes up, like everybody just loved him, and he was an unbelievable teammate. He was awesome. And then like I'd say he stands out the most for sure. Played with some other guys that were pretty good players there too, like Franz Nielsen for a year and a half in the minors, and he obviously went on to have a pretty good NHL career. But he was like very dedicated and very I'd say like set a good example of like being a pro, you know.
Yeah. And then fast forward a little bit, you get the first call up. Walk us through how that day went, and if you were expecting it, like leading up to it. Did you think there was a chance, or did it kind of come out of nowhere?
Yeah, like I think I was at the All-Star game in Portland, Maine, the American League All-Star game, and I think I thought that I might get called up at some point that year because I'd had conversations with a guy named Eric Cairns, who was a player development coach, who still is. He's their director of player development for the Islanders, and so I got a call from, I think our American League coach at the time was Jack Capuano. He called me and told me I was going to go up and play, and yeah, that was pretty awesome. It was pretty cool because like as a kid I was a huge Doug Weight fan. He was on the team. Like that's probably the thing that stands out the most to me. It was just like getting to play a game and like be around him, and that felt kind of surreal. And then like my dad came to the game, Sean came to the game. That was really cool. It was in Long Island, so it was definitely like a very, very whirlwind kind of experience for sure. But the thing that stands out the most to me probably is like that I got to play a game with Doug Weight. For totally. Sure.
I can't remember, like I know because you guys were in Bridgeport and it's not too far from the city, sometimes guys would take the train.
Yeah.
Did you drive to the game?
I drove, because they told me I'd be there for a couple games. Yeah. I think I played two and then I went down and then I went back up. So I knew I'd be there for like a handful of days. So I drove. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Stayed in a hotel.
Well, I remember you got an assist in that first game too.
Yeah.
That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I got an assist. That was a good one.
You remember the play?
Yeah, who scored?
I think I just like walked to the middle and like just kind of like dished it back to the half wall to Blake Como. He walked off the wall and just like shot it like a low blocker.
Yeah.
I think it was just like a pretty very simple play for me, but
someone's got to make the play though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Apple's an apple.
Yeah.
And what about with Doug Weight? I mean, yeah, you mentioned a guy you watched growing up. Obviously, you're not going to fanboy on a teammate, but did you ever get a moment with him to say how appreciative you were of watching him?
Yeah, for sure. Like we talked about that. Like he knew that I was a big Oilers fan, and Bill Guerin too was there the years before that too. So like we talked about it even before I had played a game. Like
at camp.
At camp, yeah. Like at camp the years before. Like I talked to Doug Weight and Bill Guerin about being from Edmonton, and like they knew I was from there, and like they knew from playing here like the impact that you had on kids there. So like a lot of the guys would make fun of me because like they knew how much I loved those guys. But those guys were always really, really nice. Like those guys were nice to everybody. Like Doug Weight and Bill Guerin were honestly just like two of the nicest teammates you could imagine, treated everybody the same. And I actually got to spend a little bit more time around Weight than normal because I was a decent golfer.
Right.
And so like a couple years before that, I went in, like a bunch of us young guys would go into camp early to Long Island, like a month early, and train with the guys in Long Island and just get ready for camp. And I got invited out to golf a couple times by Rick DiPietro and a couple of the older guys, and then DiPietro realized I was a decent golfer, so then me and him ended up being like partners for a bunch of matches. And so I got to golf with Weight and a lot of those like veteran guys, like even as a guy who like wasn't on the team, you know.
You're the ringer.
Yeah.
You were the 10 handicap.
Yeah. I remember playing one match, and I can't remember who we were playing, but it was me and Rick, and I think we were playing Garth Snow and somebody else.
Comrie was there too at this time, wasn't he?
Comrie would have been there like in maybe one of the first or second years, and then he was gone towards the last couple years I was there. But I remember we were playing a match, and I don't know exactly what we were playing, but like we were winning, like we were winning, and I think it might have been Wisniewski and Andy Sutton, and they were pressing and pressing and pressing, and I remember I birdied 16, 17, and 18 to finish the round, and I don't know how much money it wasn't. I don't think it was like a ton of money, but I just remember like they thought I was a ringer, and it was just like I just happened to play really good that day.
Got
Like,
hot.
it wasn't that good. Like I was like a 2 or a 1 or something.
Yeah.
You know, but I just happened to play like
Which is good in the grand scheme of things.
Oh,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. But I just happened to shoot like a 69 or something, or 68 that day,
Yeah.
which like I've done that a handful of times in my life, but like usually don't, right?
Yeah.
Usually
Yeah.
shoot 78 or something.
I guess this goes back to the outdoor rink kind of thing. Like, it's probably nice for you to, when you played golf, like, not saying like I was very good, but like you got to play with like me, Brandon, like you
Yeah.
guys were always, so like you winning wasn't really ever like always the option.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So then when you played with anyone else that
Yeah.
wasn't like nearly as
yeah.
good, it was just like, oh, this is like, I'm just doing
Yeah,
whatever.
I absolutely always play. I always golf my best whenever I golf with you guys, compared to if I golf with
Yeah.
people who are, you know, shooting like 89 or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Gets you going.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like you're just in that different. Well, I even just think like, oh, I can make good shots.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
whereas if you're in a looser environment, like that was always me too as a player and as a golfer, as a hockey player, like as a student, I do better in tighter environments, like,
Right.
and finding that balance of like, because I like to be loose, but I think like when someone's on me to do my best, then I do better than if the other way.
Yeah.
Where some people kind of like need to, they're so like, you know, they're so maybe like intense that they need to like loosen up a bit.
Right. Yeah.
It also
So-
shows like playing another sport kind of helps
Yeah.
your relationships and something else.
Mhm.
going
For
forward.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to play other sports is, I think, huge for anybody who's wants to have a, you know, like social life and
Yep.
Yeah.
and be playing whatever it is. I wish I could play more sports than I can, but I mean, I love that I can play golf
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure.
Well, and like that particular example too, you know, especially in those matches where you're pressing and things are stacking up, for you to finish with 3 birdies, like that's huge. that would have really put the nail in the coffin for
Yeah.
sure. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was fun.
So then let's just talk about the transition overseas.
Yeah.
Obviously a big change for a lot of players. I remember you saying, you know, there was still some hopes that last summer to stay in North America, and you know, obviously there's a lot of variables that are out of your control
Yeah.
in those situations, but yeah, just walk us through how, you know, that whole process kind of played out.
Yeah, well, I think at the American League, like NHL level, like I was definitely like an in-betweener as a defenseman. I didn't really find like the role that I was. I wasn't really sure how I was like again, this is me now reflecting on it over the years. I don't really think I found my role as a shutdown guy at the NHL level, or as like a, you know, I don't really know what I was, because in junior I was an offensive guy, and at the pro level I kind of was like struggling with like, what am I?
Right.
And so I don't think I really figured that out. I think if I would have figured that out earlier, then that maybe would have allowed me to play longer, probably at the NHL level.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I kind of was deciding between like, do I stick it out and play on an American League one way, which was kind of the offer that I had at the time, was an American League one way, or do I go to Europe? And like, quite honestly, like looking back on it now, I wish I would have stayed in North America a little bit longer. I really felt like, oh, I need an NHL contract to stay and play in the minors, and that was, I think, just me like not really knowing, you know, like had I gone and played on an American League one way, like you're really just a day or a phone call or whatever away from getting signed again.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know that though, and so I think that that maybe led me to go to Sweden. And at the same time, like I don't regret anything at all from going over there and having the life experience that me and my wife got to have living over there. I think that also in those last couple of years, and even my last couple of years in the Islanders system, like I had a couple of concussions, and like I wasn't like fully, like I didn't really love the game as much. I definitely didn't love the game as much. I do believe in my heart that like if I really like would have loved it as much as I did when I was 17, 18, I would have found a way to play longer in North America.
Yeah.
But I think me going to Europe was almost kind of like, okay, like I'm not really like in love with this anymore. Like, let's go try something different,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
And so living over there was fun, you know. Had a couple concussions over there. Like, I don't really feel like I played my best hockey in really any of the years that I played in Europe. I think that had to do with like just feeling like I was kind of like not winding down, but like moving away from like when I loved the game,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
But you know, again, thinking about it now, like living over there was great, and playing in those leagues and living in different countries, and then at the end of my time in Europe, going to England and going to school for a couple of years, like that was really enjoyable to me, and kind of showed me like a new thing that it allowed me to kind of get back into school, which is something I hadn't done since high school.
Right.
But it ended up being a really cool kind of bonus and positive of going over to Europe.
Yeah.
And how much of an eye opener was it? Not so much from the hockey side of things, but you know, you've given us some tidbits about the development side of things and how, you know, how different the European model is from the Canadian model. What sort of specific things maybe at that time did, you know, stuck out to you that's like, hey, we don't do that in Canada?
For sure. One thing that stood out to me in Sweden was that every practice, like I had a guy named Peter Anderson, who was my coach, who's his kid is the guy in Calgary, that Rasmus Anderson, defenseman. So Peter Anderson was my coach, and he'd coached, you know, in Swedish Elite League and all over. He played, I think, 100 games or so for the Rangers back in the day. He was my coach. And we were in the second league in Sweden, but we had like, it's different over there. The way that the first league and second league work over there, there's relegation. And so I went to a team that was in the second league, but was like really trying hard to get to the first league. Right. So they were like buying players to try to help them get promoted. And so they had a really high end coach in Peter Anderson there, who was like, his goal was to help them get promoted. And they did. A couple of years later, the year I was there, we were really good. Like, we won a lot of games in the regular season. We didn't get promoted. You know, you get into the promotion round. It's like a round robin kind of thing, and so it's, you know, not necessarily. It's a little bit dicey. It's not like a 7-game series, right. You know.
Yeah.
But we had a really good team, and the thing that I remember from Sweden was that every practice, the last like 15 to 20 minutes was like 5-on-5 scrimmage, and but hard competing, right. 5-on-5. It was like a game, right? And so they were trying to like mimic like decisions under pressure and like game like play, whereas in North America, like we pretty much never had that.
Right.
We never did 5-on-5. It was lots of systems, lots of forecheck, breakout, all the stuff that you guys would have seen or known or had. And over there, that was very different. And then there's just a lot of emphasis, obviously, on individual skill. Going to a couple like minor hockey practices and seeing what that was like in Sweden, it was completely different than our minor hockey practices growing up. And I think even like in our group that I was in through minor hockey, we probably had some coaches that were like doing a fair amount of skill development stuff, but like not compared to Sweden. Like there, it was just like all skill development. Yeah. You know, they were like, anybody can learn how to play systems when they're older. Like, right. we'll let's make them as skilled as possible when they're young.
Right.
So those two things stood out for me for sure.
And was it integrated? Like, was your pro team integrated right down through that obviously, again, like I think Matt talked about that earlier. We don't have that, you know, model as commonly here. Some of the American cities do, where they're really trying to get hockey to grow behind the NHL team. Yeah. But certainly, obviously, in Edmonton, like that's a very different concept.
You might see it more with like the junior Oilers. Like, I don't know much about this, but there's like junior Oilers will potentially running it down.
I mean, there's a system
no
there.
Direct route
Oilers, Oil Kings, junior Oilers almost seems like
it could be integrated. Yeah. Well, I think that they're trying to have that look that way, like like the perception be that there's some level of integration and involvement. And I mean, it would be great if that did happen in the future, but the way, again, like we talked about earlier, the way that the NHL and the Western League is run, it's like business, right? Mm-hmm. And then even the U18 academy world has made everything so much business that's not really happening. Where in Europe, like those pro teams are subsidizing hockey for the whole city, really, you know? and feeding their development program, which is probably how it should be.
Right.
It seems like the smaller the city, like it's tough in Edmonton because there's, the Oilers already that like all the funding sort of goes to, like when you're in a place like Brandon or like smaller towns, it's like you get more of the like when you play in Camrose, like it's a jam-packed house every night. Even Fort Sask, like it's just outside of Edmonton, but the local community takes over almost.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a lot easier to, because they do need to make money. So that's the tough part. But I feel like if maybe you're like the smaller cities have a better advantage at that certain point because they know they're going to have the support. Yeah. But then they can spend more time developing instead of just focusing on like the now, like right now, not.
Yeah, it's interesting because like the culture is probably tighter in the smaller cities, but the pool of resources and revenue, is way higher for the Oilers. Yeah. Right. Like it's just it's the structure of how
everything.
you're setting it up, and if that's a priority or not.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, it's also chicken and the egg. Like the Oilers have been here a long time, but minor hockey's been here longer. Our minor hockey system was set up without them here. And that's why I think you see more of this European model in some of the American cities where hockey's just getting going, and they've got like Arizona, right?
They're starting
they don't
fresh,
have a team
but
anymore.
They can start fresh. Like there's no pre-existing
structure.
They can just start it the way they want to.
Totally. Yeah. Like Arizona, Phoenix doesn't have the team anymore, but like their hockey program was built all underneath the Coyotes.
They're also very lucky that there's a lot of ex-NHL players that are now living there and coaching
and helping
in the
out
system now.
But that's interesting. Like I've always thought of like the steps, but I've never thought of the actual money side of like your team in Sweden actually having subsidizing. And then now all of a sudden, like we talked about earlier, you've got those kids that normally who couldn't afford to play that can play because of that revenue trickling down.
Scandinavian countries are really good with that.
And even if you think about it here, like who are the beneficiaries of the minor hockey system here, really? Like the Western League and the NHL.
Right.
And so they should be paying for minor hockey.
Right.
I'm not saying like anyone in particular, but like there should be some kind of like collective subsidy from somewhere that's
trickling down,
that's paying for minor hockey,
right?
Because they're the beneficiaries, right? Like they're the ones that are benefiting from players being developed, right? Yeah, into junior and NHL players.
Well, when's Gary Bettman going to start carving it out?
But I know I've heard stories again, like I think it's maybe Norway, but for like the junior golfers, it's like $250 a year or something. Yeah, like they found ways to. Now this is the tough part is like where does the money come from? All this other stuff, who knows? But that's why they're like the really strong golfing nation with very few people.
Yes, yeah, and a short.
But it's because they
golf
do have
season
it's
too.
because they do have the access. But the short season, I don't think is actually that bad of a. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. Thinking about it now, I know like Kevin Blue's done some studies where they look at northern states and like it's still possible. Yeah, like if someone from the northern American states, they kind of use that as for Canada as well. Right. But like it's possible that gives you that off season
break,
play other sports when because I know even with there's an organization called TPI, Ties Performance Institute. I think they're still called technically, but they notice that like golfers that have only played golf or kind of horrible athletes and they can't move. And it's like tougher to get them to do certain things because they don't have that sport background. They don't understand like
they're not athletic.
They're not athletic.
Yeah, for sure.
Repetitive motion, and like you said earlier, like that also then as you get older starts to lead to the increased injury risk. Yeah, if you've only strengthened certain muscles and the rest of them are weak and ready to get into trouble if you finally use them, right? So I guess we want to talk about just retirement. It's obviously a huge thing for players and families that have known a certain way of life for a long number of years. When that time finally came for you, how was that process for you?
It was like not that difficult at the time for me because I kind of just like jumped into working. Like I was done playing in like April of a year, and I started working in like July for actually the Blades in Saskatoon. So I didn't really have a ton of time to like think about it and like process like what it actually meant. And that kind of process for me came later. Like honestly, like after going to Saskatoon for a couple of years, then moving back home and being in Edmonton for a few years, like it started happening for me like after I had already retired,
Right.
probably a few years before,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that's one of the things that I kind of probably wish I would have done, is take a little bit of time, like after I was done playing, to be like, oh, like what do I want to do now?
Right.
You know? And again, like I'm very, very grateful and happy for like the way everything's worked out. And I do believe that it's all meant to be that way. But I think that I didn't really process like what I wanted to do after being done hockey until I was like, you know, I'd say the most intense periods of reflection that I've had in my life, even thinking about my hockey career, is like after I had my daughter, you know, because you start thinking about like, well, what kind of like person do I want to be raising my kid? And, you know, my wife's very interested in the same types of things. And it's like, oh, like this is a big life-changing event that like makes you really think about things. So I think that having a daughter like in 2020, and then also couple that with like COVID and like having all the time to sit there and think about things, like
a lot of time
really,
for reflection.
Yeah, really. Like I honestly, I don't think I really thought about being done playing hockey and what that meant for me until I was like 2020. So that's like, you know, 5 years after I was done playing.
Oh.
Right. Yeah.
And that's because I was just largely just kind of like keeping busy,
Right.
in a sense.
Yeah.
And I'm sure part of that's too just getting older, right?
Yeah.
Like not just as a player and moving on from hockey, but just life, like getting older and being exposed to different things and different ideas and whatever. But I definitely think that it's led me in the last like couple of years to be really interested in like identity of athletes and like an identity like independent of being an athlete.
Not tying your self-worth to your
Yeah,
performance.
100%. And like that's largely like what I'm doing now. Like when I work with players in a player development and like a mental skills capacity, it's like helping them kind of like focus on like a process, like what's in your control, and then detailing process, but then also like what goes into you as a person having self-worth that's independent of your sport. Because ironically, it's going to help you in your sport, but you kind of gotta like sort that out first. And it's tough. I mean, I think it's tough for young guys to figure that out, and like you not even figure it out, but just like it's a new concept for a lot of young guys.
Totally.
You have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like even just with yourself.
Be vulnerable and think about like, the idea that there's like more important things to life than like a sport or your hockey career.
Right.
But at the time if you're in it, it's tough to not have that view, you know, that lens.
Well, and like we talked about earlier, like if it's and I'm sure you've dealt with a few players that are like this, if all they've ever done is hockey,
Yeah.
it's pretty hard to fill out that other column,
Yeah.
right?
100%. Yeah.
So it kind of comes back full circle of being like, hey, here's some other advantages of getting into golf and having some of these other passions.
Yeah.
So that when hockey inevitably disappears or you have to retire, you're not left sitting there like, man,
Yeah.
what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
I guess because you stayed so close to the game, though, it probably didn't feel like you totally, like you were still in the same environment
For sure.
day after day.
Yeah, definitely. I think staying involved in it. I mean, I think there's like obviously positives and negatives.
It's a good or bad thing
to
too,
that.
yes.
Yeah. Like being really involved in it is definitely a good thing, but also, you know, then maybe like limits your perspective at times too, you know?
Yeah. Well, and like you said, like being busy, getting right into work, you know, kind of stalled out maybe that reflection time, but at the same time, like if you hear a lot of guys that really struggle after retirement, it's often when they have nothing to do.
Yeah.
And the purpose is just completely gone.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, hopefully, like you said, hopefully it worked out for the better happening that way.
Yeah.
But it is kind of unique because
Yeah.
usually you don't hear guys saying, well, I didn't really think about it for 5 years. Like it's, you know, it's definitely a unique, cool sort of way that it played out for you.
Yeah. And like, it's something that's kind of funny. And like, I've thought about it this way a little bit before. It's like, I think that you're so like, as a kid who grows up here in Edmonton, you're so like, well, I guess for me, it wasn't until I was in the Western League that I really started thinking about the NHL. But even like unconsciously, as a kid growing up in Edmonton, you're so invested in the NHL because you're a fan, right? And even though my parents weren't talking about it every day in our house, I was feeling like that, like unconsciously seeing it, being in a city like Edmonton, loving the NHL. You place so much like value and like love on like wanting to be an NHL player. And then I think for me, like when I honestly I think the reason why it was easier for me to retire too is because like when I kind of like my hockey career, like in my mind, kind of like died when I like was like, okay, I'm not gonna play in the NHL again.
Yeah.
And I think that that's different for everybody, because like for me, I always loved other things along with hockey, like school and you know, golf is like an example. But I mean, I'm not a golf coach, or I'm not golfing as like a part of my like significant part of my life right now. It's just enjoyment. But there are other things that I've always liked in my life. I think school and I think like learning is kind of that main thing for me. And so, you know, when I kind of like realized I wasn't going to be in the NHL anymore, it was kind of like when I like accepted like my hockey career is kind of like a little bit over, which again, like that's my kind of conceptualization of it. Whereas like some guys I know, like they never, you know, maybe they played the NHL or maybe they didn't, but they're still playing and they're 38, 39 in Europe and they absolutely love the game more than anything, which is awesome. And that's just their conceptualization of it, right. You know?
Yeah. Their goal, their expectation is probably just, I'm going to play this as long as I can. Yeah. And that's what motivates them, right?
For sure. Yeah. They just love it or whatever it is. Like, but I guess it's kind of just, whatever you think in your head or whatever you believe. But, I think for me, that was probably also why it was a little bit easier for me to like retire, I guess, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you managed to stay in the game too a lot. And it seems like you're a receiver during your playing career. Now you're giving back to the game, and that almost seems like your identity right now. Just, you know, giving your knowledge and then, you know, getting into a business together. It seems you're giving a lot back to the game. Yeah,
for sure. I think I definitely try to think of it that way in terms of like wanting to help players with going through experiences that I might have gone through, or I can have a little bit of aid in their development, or give them some perspective that might like change the way they think or mean something to them, for sure. I think it's like it's something that I feel like I want to be involved in, because I did have the experience as being a player. I did have the opportunity to get a lot of really, really good things from playing, and I feel like trying to you know, give back some of that is almost like a little bit of like a duty, you know, to view it that way.
Pay it forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, maybe last question before we wrap up here. We're getting to that time. You had mentioned your daughter and going to the open house at Donnan, where three of us had went before. Is she showing interest in hockey, and how are you feeling about that if she is?
Yeah. She's not showing interest in hockey yet. She's showing a lot of interest in skating.
Okay.
She's got a hockey stick and hockey gloves and a hockey helmet.
Nice.
But she like doesn't really like to play hockey yet anyways. A little bit in the house. She's like shooting a ball around and stuff.
Are you having to go in net already?
No, not yet. Kirsten can go in net. Kirsten was a goalie when she was like 10, so on street hockey. She seems to really love skating outside.
Cool.
Like we've taken her to the indoor rinks a bit, and she wasn't really thrilled. And then we took her to the oval, and we took her to the baseball field where Steve works, and he's like flooded a rink there a couple times.
Yeah.
She loves skating outside.
Cool.
So yeah, no hockey yet. We'll see.
Maybe a future speed skater at the oval.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
Okay, Dust. Well, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate your time. It's been a great conversation, and it's always great to catch up with you and chat, and this has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
Thanks, Dustin. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
To help support the community, please visit our website at usports.community and follow us at usportscommunity on all social media.
You can also follow and rate our podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Audible. Subscribe and like our video feed on YouTube.
Links for all our platforms can be found in the show notes.
Best way to help grow the U-Sports community is to comment on and share our content with your fellow parents and athletes.
This episode was produced by Nick Hussey of Hussey Multimedia, and hydration was provided by Earthwater.
The youth sports community is proudly presented by Nuance Hockey and Ma Golf.
Nuance Hockey provides detail-driven on- and off-ice development in the Edmonton area. For more information, please visit our website at nuance.hockey and follow us on social media.
Ma Small Golf provides elite coaching for golfers of all skill levels at the Millwoods Golf Club in Edmonton. Our apparel is provided by Bird & Barley, prairie-inspired, golf-focused. To receive 15% off your next order, please visit birdandbarley.com and use our promo code YSC15.
We look forward to you joining the community next time.